So, have you ever scrolled through Instagram and wondered how you could fill your feed with absolutely stunning, centuries-old art or classic literature without getting hit with a single copyright strike? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into today. We're unlocking the secret to turning the world's creative history into your next viral post and doing it all legally and for free.
If you're a content creator, you know the feeling, right? That constant need for fresh, high-quality stuff to post. It's like being on a content treadmill. But you know what? One of the world's most famous institutions found a brilliant solution. And they found it by looking back into their own archives.
I mean, it sounds like a trick question, doesn't it? How do you take something that's been around for literally generations and make it stop someone mid-scroll, especially with our tiny attention spans? Well, this is the exact puzzle the New York Public Library set out to solve.
And here's the genius part. Their big marketing idea came directly from their mission statement. Instead of chasing trends, they just looked at who they were. Their goal has always been to provide open access to knowledge. So they just asked, okay, how can we do that where people actually are right now? And the answer was obvious. On their phones, scrolling Instagram.
Their solution was just brilliant. They didn't just post pictures of books. No, they completely reimagined entire novels like Alice in Wonderland, page by page for the vertical screen of Instagram stories. They added custom animations and beautiful design. They truly met their audience exactly where they were.
So what happened? Was it successful? Yeah, this number right here, that's how many new Instagram followers the library gained in just the first 24 hours. It just goes to show you, with the right creative spin, classic content can be an absolute powerhouse online. But here's the thing. The New York Public Library's success wasn't some kind of one-off magic trick. They tapped into a massive, and I mean massively underused resource that is available to every single one of us. This is where their strategy can become your strategy. The resource they tapped into is called the public domain. The easiest way to think about it is like a giant global creative treasure chest. It's filled with art, music, and books where the copyright has expired or never even existed. The lid is wide open and it's all there for the taking. And we're not talking about some dusty, forgotten corner of the internet. We're talking about major players like the Met and the Cleveland Museum of Art. They've embraced this open access idea, digitizing hundreds of thousands of high-resolution masterpieces, including famous works like this Van Gogh, and just made them available for you to download and remix. Now, as you start exploring these digital collections, you're going to see this term pop up a lot, CC0, or Creative Commons Zero. This is basically the gold standard. It's the no rights reserved license. It means the institution has said, here, take this, do whatever you want with it, even for commercial stuff. No strings attached. It's the ultimate green light. And hey, don't just think in pictures. The public domain is a goldmine for audio, too. Websites like freepd.com are packed with music and sound effects, all under that same CC0 license. It's perfect for adding a soundtrack to your Instagram reels or stories without ever having to worry about those pesky copyright flags. Okay, so you've found your raw materials. You've got a stunning painting, a classic novel, maybe a cool piece of music. Now for the really fun part. How do we transform this historical content into something that feels fresh, modern, and totally built for Instagram? You've seen these, right? One of the most engaging formats on Instagram has to be the seamless carousel, where one image just flows perfectly into the next as you swipe. It's so satisfying to look at, and it really encourages people to swipe all the way through your post. Well, you can totally do this with public domain art. And creating one is actually way simpler than it looks, especially with a tool like Canva. Let me break it down. First, you just figure out your total width. That's 1080 pixels times however many slides you want. Then you create one long custom canvas in your design tool. After that, you just add vertical guides every 1080 pixels to see where each slide begins and ends. Now you can place your art and text so it flows right across those guides. And for the final step, you use a free online image splitter to slice it up into your individual posts. It's a fantastic little hack. All right, here's another powerful idea. Instead of making old content look brand new, what if you lean into its history? You can amplify that classic feel by creating a cool vintage or retro aesthetic. It creates this sense of nostalgia and can give your whole feed a really unique, cohesive look. So how do you actually pull that off? Well, it's all about layering different effects. You can add some film green for texture, maybe some artificial light leaks to get that old school camera feel. Try using more muted color palettes, adding retro date stamps, and finding some cool typewriter-style fonts. Every little layer you add builds up that authentic, timeless vibe.
And check this out. Here's that idea in action. This is the same Van Gogh painting from the Cleveland Museum of Art that we looked at a minute ago, but now it's been totally remixed into a modern Instagram post. It's got that vintage filter, a retro font, even that classic Polaroid-style border. It feels both old and new at the exact same time. Pretty cool, right?
Okay, now hold on. Before you rush off and start creating, we have to talk about something that is super, super important, the legal and ethical fine print. Because while the public domain gives you incredible freedom, free doesn't mean you can just ignore the details. Using this stuff responsibly is absolutely key. Let me give you a perfect example of a common trap people fall into. The original text of a 500-year-old philosophy book, totally in the public domain. But a modern English translation of that same book is considered a brand new creative work. And that translation is protected by its own copyright, so you can't just use it freely. The same goes for things like modern photos of old sculptures or new recordings of classical music.
And really, this is the bottom line. Institutions like the Getty Museum are amazing for providing access, but they make it crystal clear that at the end of the day, the responsibility to make sure you're using something correctly falls on you, the creator. You've got to do your homework.
So, to make it easy, here's a quick little mental checklist to run through before you hit that post button. First, where'd you get it? Is it a reputable museum or archive? Second, look at the details, the metadata. Is the artist credited correctly? Sometimes things get mislabeled. And third, just think if there could be any other rights involved. Are there identifiable people in the photo? Are there company logos?
All right, we've covered the what, the where, the how, and the how to be careful. So now let's just zoom out for a second and bring it all together. What does all this really mean for your creativity on a platform like Instagram?
I absolutely love this quote from Emily Bradshaw, who does amazing work for the Helen Plum Library's Instagram. The lesson here is so simple. Lead with a great story. Lead with a compelling idea. Don't just lead with what you want to promote. The public domain is your source for those incredible stories. If you focus on making awesome content, the engagement, that'll follow.
And that is the big takeaway here. We have to stop thinking of the public domain as some dusty, boring archive of old stuff. It's not. It's a dynamic, living toolkit. It's a launchpad for your next great idea, a way to have a conversation with the past and create something new for today. So, I'll leave you with this question. Centuries of human creativity, the raw materials of our shared culture, are literally at your fingertips. They're just waiting to be rediscovered and remixed for a whole new generation. The only limit really is your imagination. So, what new stories will you tell?